Mongabay Reports is a series that shares evergreen articles from Mongabay.com, read by myself, Mike DiGirolamo. This episode's feature article is From Landmines to Lifelines, Lebanon's Shouf is a Rare Restoration Success Story, by Elizabeth Fitt on the 23rd of March, 2022. Shouf Biosphere Reserve, Lebanon. Late afternoon light falls across Talal Rehman's weathered face as he stands under the ancient cedars he's tended for almost 3 decades in Lebanon's Shouf Biosphere Reserve, SBR. Rehman used to defend these trees against would-be loggers and human-caused forest fires with a pump-action shotgun. Now, the SBR team protects what's left of Lebanon's iconic cedars and the surrounding landscape with community engagement and a new generation of sustainability-savvy conservationists. I did my part, but these days it's good to make room for a new educated generation. The 64-year-old who picked up his first retirement check just the day before says as he smiles at Farid Tarabay, 19, the new forest guide taking his place. UNESCO biosphere reserves around the world put innovative landscape restoration and conservation interventions to the test, exploring how to recover degraded ecological systems in ways that also boost human well-being. At the SBR, rangers like Tarabay now educate visitors instead of keeping them out, while the organization creates jobs and training designed to both improve the ecosystem and benefit local communities. If the SBR is a living laboratory, many of its experiments appear to be succeeding, despite Lebanon's current economic and political crises. The idea is to manage this landscape in full cooperation and involvement with the communities who are living there. Nizar Hani, director of the SBR since 2010, told Mongabay over Arabic coffee on a sun-dappled November day last year in the mountain village of Masa el Shouf. The sparsely clad peaks of the Mount Lebanon range march across the SBR into the misty distance, topping a scattered patchwork of agricultural terraces and old stone villages populated mostly by Druze people who settled the land in the Middle Ages. The rest of the estimated 228,000 people living within the reserve are Maronite and Greek Orthodox Christians, Sunni Muslims, and people displaced by the Syrian civil war. 32 mammal species, more than 275 bird species, and 31 amphibian and reptile species also call the SBR home. These include wolves, hyenas, jackals, porcupines, chameleons, tortoises, badgers, eagles, hyraxes, snakes, storks, and many more. Researchers have cataloged more than 1,100 plant species, 25 are nationally and internationally threatened, according to the IUCN Red List, and 48 are found only in Lebanon or the wider region. At 50,000 hectares, an area nearly 10 times the size of Manhattan, the SBR is the biggest biosphere reserve in the Middle East. Designated by UNESCO in 2005, it includes a 620-hectare nature reserve originally set up in 1996 to conserve ancient Lebanese cedars. To balance the needs of its human and wild inhabitants, the SBR takes 2 main approaches, according to Hani. The first is to manage and restore sites. This includes increasing the ecosystem's resilience to climate change and protecting it from fires and other human activities that have degraded the region, such as logging, urbanization, and quarrying. The second approach encourages cultural practices that conserve nature while benefiting local communities, for instance, by supporting ecotourism and agritourism and providing a slew of training options. The reserve was hailed by Restore, an ecological restoration network, as an example of best practices from among 727 biosphere reserves globally, based on a case study by Sarah Wilson, a forest restoration expert and co-founder of Cities for Forests. This project was thought through from start to finish, Wilson told Mongabay by email. That sounds like it would be obvious, but it is so often not the case. Wilson said the SBR's demonstration of its economic and social value for locals and supporters is essential to generating the interest that underpins its success. Programs that provide locals with training and support for green value chains from idea to sale is also key, she said. SBR communications manager Sarah Nasrallah told Mongabay this starts with local experts who teach farmers how to restore agricultural land, farm indigenous species sustainably, and sell their produce locally. The SBR also trains small business owners to turn local produce into moune, traditional artisanal food products, and sell it. Furthermore, the program trains restaurateurs and guest house owners in hospitality skills. In turn, they buy mune and other local produce to serve to local guests and tourists. We are creating a circular economy, Nasrallah said. The Shouf has not always been so inviting. The seeds of the reserve were sown in strife during Lebanon's civil war that raged from 1975 to 1990. Back then, politician and local Druze leader Walid Jumblat took drastic measures to conserve Shouf cedar forests near his home village. Jumblat told Mongabay that his father, the socialist politician and Civil War opposition leader Kamal Jumblat, had instilled in him the value of nature, often quoting environmental movement matriarch Rachel Carson during his childhood. Following his father's assassination during the war, Jumblat took over the Progressive Socialist Party, which had set up a sort of mini-state called the Civil Administration in the Shouf region, he explained. He wanted to make sure cedar forests under the civil administration survived the war unravaged by logging for firewood or uncontrollable fires accidentally started by smokers and picnickers in the arid region, he added. I decided to intervene and stop people coming in, Jumblat said, but not everybody listened, so I blocked the roads and I had to put landmines. In addition to laying explosives and earth berms across roads leading to forests, Jumblat employed armed guards to further deter would-be entrants and keep landmine accidents to a minimum. Occasionally, goat herders would venture in illegally, resulting in at least one death, according to Jumblat. After the Civil War ended, Riemann became one of those forest guards in 1992. He spent his days keeping people out with his shotgun and issuing fines to trespassers alongside 5 other armed men. These defensive tactics continued until the government declared the forest a nature reserve in 1996, and the army removed the mines. By then, the Shouf's cedars had been left undisturbed for decades. From one side, we were killing each other, but from other sides, we were building something, Jumblat said wistfully of his wartime decisions. He has backed the development of less grim conservation initiatives in the Shouf ever since. It's a sad conservation story, but it is a conservation story, Hani said. People were in a different place. The shift from brute force to a new model began with full focus on the cedar trees, Hani said. Cedars hold a special place in the hearts of Lebanese people. Lebanese art, music, and business logos feature the majestic tree. It's on the national flag, and even the country's most popular cigarette brand is called Cedars. Conservationists call a species that underpins a community's identity a cultural keystone species. Such cultural keystones are useful starting points for community engagement. The strong connection between the Lebanese people and cedars helped build momentum to restore the whole Shouf landscape on which both the cedars and local humans depend, Hani said. The IUCN's designation of the Lebanese cedar in 2013 as vulnerable, moving the species into the threatened category of the Red List, also helped raise awareness abroad, according to Hani. Since Hani took over the SBR in 2010, more than 1.5 million people have poured into Lebanon from Syria, displaced from their homes by the ongoing civil war. Now around 58,000 Syrian people live within the reserve. A civil uprising toppled the Lebanese government in 2019, swiftly followed by the COVID-19 pandemic. By August 4, 2020, when the Beirut blast damaged 40,000 buildings and injured nearly 7,000 people, the country was already gripped by an economic crisis, since billed as one of the world's worst since the 1850s. This economic fallout threatens the SBR's funding. Backing is secured until 2024, largely from international partners, Hani said. But many sponsors have vanished, including Lebanese banks, big business donors, and the Ministry of Environment. The latter used to contribute around 80 million Lebanese lira, around 53,000 USD at the time, annually, but hasn't paid anything in 3 years, Hani noted. Today, Lebanon struggles with currency depreciation of more than 90% and rickety governance hobbled by fractured leadership. The nation doesn't feel a likely hotbed for ecological best practices, but to date, the SBR's 60 permanent staff are rising to the challenge nonetheless. You have to be resilient to crisis, Hani said. You can't fall down with the rest of the country. Prices for diesel and other fuels used to heat homes rose by around 1,800% in 2021. Bitter winter temperatures can force desperate people to resort to logging when priced out of other options. They need to keep their children warm. Compared with that, they don't care if they ruin nature, said Nasrallah, the SBR communications manager. The SBR's response? Eco-briquettes. Previously, these fuel blocks sold for around $200 per metric ton, but this winter, the SBR is providing briquettes for free to vulnerable locals who might otherwise turn to logging to stay warm. Workers turn the residue, or pumice, from local olive oil production and shredded material from tree thinning into briquettes people can use in wood-burning stoves. The SBR pays production costs with international aid money. The eco-briquettes also create employment opportunities, helping the struggling local economy. According to the UN, Lebanon's unemployment rate is around 40%, while more than 3/4 of the population live in poverty. To combat the dire situation, the SBR focuses on creating short-term jobs in sustainable agriculture using cash for training and cash for work schemes run in partnership with the World Food Programme. Fatmi Ramadan El Saleh, who came to Lebanon from Syria after an airstrike destroyed her home in 2013, was midway through her 10-day cash for training workshop on animal husbandry when Mongabay caught up with her. "I wish I had registered for this workshop a long time ago," she said. "I'm here to learn about how to look after chickens and also because they pay us." She plans to use what she's learning to breed chickens for sale. The Cash for Training program worked with 376 trainees in 2020. 2/3 of them Syrian. Graduates are encouraged to start their own small business or seek employment in the Cash for Work program. Anyone can attend these courses for the money that they pay, the SBR's reforestation supervisor, Salar Hassan El-Shoufi, told Mongabay while waiting on a remote mountainside for a battered four-wheel drive vehicle to deliver tree seedlings to a restoration site near the village of Niha. Villagers who attend start gaining so much more than the money. His workers agreed, enthusiastically explaining how to dig holes and plant using techniques learned from the SBR to protect seedlings from the wind and conserve moisture in the soil. "I'm going to be very happy and proud when I see these seedlings grow up," planter Marwa Selamenma said at break time, sipping sweet tea brewed in the smoke-blackened kettle on the mountainside. El-Shoufi's tree planting project, funded by the French government's International Development Agency, the AFD, is tasked with planting 40,000 seedlings. The aim is to increase native tree cover and biodiversity by planting Mediterranean hawthorn and Lebanon oak, as well as pine nut trees for their high value, while employing local people for planting and maintenance. The seedlings need all the help they can get. Temperatures increasing faster in Lebanon than the global average are expected to rise by up to 3.2 degrees Celsius by 2100, with rainfall decreasing by 11%, according to the Ministry of Environment. Working across the head of the spectacular Ain Name Valley, the planters carefully select where to plant each seedling according to soil type, depth, and water sources. The seeds are sourced locally and grown using a root-air pruning technique to maximize resistance to the warming climate. Changing from polybags to air pruning pots, we were able to raise seedling survival rate from less than 15% to more than 90%, said Khaled Fouad Slim, an agricultural engineer and native tree nursery owner. Slim, Shouf born and bred, has been advising the SBR for 17 years and supplies it with seedlings from his nursery in the reserve. He said he hopes the higher degree of genetic diversity found in the seed-grown plants over clones will help the restoration projects withstand the changes predicted by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. But he added, "I really don't know. I mean, with this rise in temperatures and getting less and less water and less snow, it scares me. It scares me a lot." Warming is already having a visible effect in the Shouf. 20 years ago, the tree line was very clear at 1,800 meters, Hani told Mongabay, tracing a straight line across the mountainside with his hand, where straggling patches of young trees now sit in an uneven wiggle. Climate change is pushing the forest to higher altitude. We call it forest migration. If the forest reaches the mountaintops, many endemic species living above the tree line will be lost because there's nowhere for them to go, Hani explained. If we want to sustain these protected areas for the long term, we need to look at cultural practices and adapt them to suit our current needs and time, Hani said. Most of the SBR's dry stone wall terraces lie abandoned, even though they've been used to grow crops here for around 5,000 years. To remedy this, the SBR is restoring 600 hectares of terraces for growing crops more sustainably and reducing fire risk. For the Abu Saad brothers, this is a game changer. They began farming their grandfather's abandoned land in 2019. With training and support from the SBR, they not only restored the farm's terraces, but also learned how to make compost, use companion planting, and grow plants to attract beneficial insects for increasing yields and fighting pests. And they run a sustainable agritourism business where visitors pick their own vegetables and learn how to cook them traditionally on site. We were sick of using chemicals and pesticides on our plants. It was costly, and we realized we were harming ourselves and harming people and nature, Ramzi Abu Saad told Mongabay. When they were selected to receive training from the SBR, we felt we were the kings of agriculture, Ramzi said. The SBR reports that it produces up to $21.4 million in economic benefits annually through edible, aromatic, and fuel products, as well as tourism, safeguarding spring water, cultural services, and carbon sequestration. Youssef Mahmoud, 75, a community elder who also sells organic produce, said knowledge of the SBR's value has filtered through the community, even to those like him who are unaffiliated. Mahmoud has lived through several wars and is no stranger to forest restoration. 60 years ago, he planted cedars on the mountain opposite his village. This feeling is something special, unique. They're like my children. It's a beautiful feeling, Mahmoud said, smoke from his Cedars brand cigarette gently curling through the fresh mountain air around his curbside plastic chair as he gestures toward the mountainside of cedars he planted, now a tall forest. While watching his trees grow, Mahmoud has seen conservation tactics in the region change. The reserve has enlightened closed minds, he said. This has been a special Mongabay audio report. Original article by Elizabeth Fitt. I am your reader, Mike DiGirolamo. Special projects like this are made possible by our Patreon supporters, so please consider becoming a monthly sponsor via our Patreon page at patreon.com/Mongabay. As little as $1 per month will help us offset the production costs and hosting fees to help us make more content like this. And keep up with all of Mongabay's news from Nature's Frontline at mongabay.com. Get updates from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, where our handle is @Mongabay. And check out our video reporting on YouTube. Thanks for listening.